They told you success was about luck. They told you it was about timing, that it was about who you knew or what you inherited or where you were born. But they never told you the truth, the real truth, that success is programmed, that your outcomes, your habits, your income, your destiny are all driven by one invisible force, the blueprint of your subconscious mind. And here's what they really didn't tell you. You are the programmer. You always were. Every thought you allow, every belief you entertain, every word you speak, they aren't just passing clouds in your mental sky. They're bricks, they're blueprints, they're instructions being coded into the deepest part of you. The part that runs when you're not watching, the part that doesn't sleep, the part that controls 95% of your life on autopilot. You call it habit, you call it personality, you call it fate, but it's not. It's programming. And the question is, who wrote yours? Was it the teacher who said you'd never amount to much? Was it the parent who told you money was evil? Was it the friend who laughed at your dreams? The boss who clipped your wings? The world that taught you to play small, stay quiet, and accept less? Because if you don't program your mind, the world will do it for you. And it won't program you to rise. It will program you to obey. But there comes a moment, one moment, when you wake up, when something inside of you shatters the silence, when you look in the mirror and decide, enough. Enough of running scripts that weren't written by your hand. Enough of living by beliefs that were never yours. Enough of thinking like the average when you were built to be exceptional. And from that moment, everything changes. Because once you understand the power of your subconscious, once you grasp that it is your engine, your compass, your hidden mechanism, you stop chasing success. You start becoming it. Let me make this plain. Your subconscious doesn't care what you say you want. It listens to what you expect. It listens to what you rehearse. It listens to the feeling you carry when no one's watching. That's what it obeys, not your goals, your beliefs. Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it wasn't just a quote. It was a revelation, because the subconscious accepts whatever you repeat with feeling. That means your fear. It listens. Your doubt. It obeys. Your self-loathing. It becomes your GPS. But so does your courage. So does your faith. So does your burning desire. This is why Napoleon Hill wrote, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Not just because of positive thinking, but because belief turns into behavior, and behavior turns into results. And results reinforce belief. It is the loop of destiny, and if you don't interrupt it, it becomes your prison. But the moment you become conscious of the unconscious, the moment you stop reacting and start designing, that's when you begin the real work. You see, you can't build a mansion on a rotten foundation, and you can't build a legendary life on limiting beliefs. You must tear them out, root and stem. You must confront the voice inside that says you're not enough and rewrite the script. You must catch the thought that says, I can't, and replace it with, I will, not because of blind arrogance, but because of chosen faith. Faith is not weak. Faith is not passive. Faith is a decision. Faith is mental warfare. And it is the first tool you need to rewire the codes that run your life. Look around at the world's great achievers, Carnegie, Edison, Disney. They all face the same world you do, full of doubt, resistance, and rejection. But they held one secret weapon, a mind programmed for triumph. When Edison failed 10,000 times to invent the light bulb, he wasn't failing. He was imprinting belief into his cells. When Disney was told he lacked imagination, he wasn't discouraged. He was programming conviction. When Carnegie saw poverty all around him, he didn't absorb it. He created a vision so strong, his subconscious had no choice but to bring it into form. And that brings us to vision, because programming your subconscious isn't about repeating empty affirmations in the mirror. It's about feeding it with such clear, vivid, emotional visions that it begins to believe they already exist. The subconscious cannot tell the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is real. That's why visualization works. That's why Olympic athletes rehearse their gold medal runs in their minds before they even touch the track. That's why world-class performers prime their minds before the stage, before the camera, before the boardroom, because what you rehearse, you become. When you start living in the end, when you start acting as if the outcome is already certain, your subconscious begins to bend the world to match that script. And the world responds, not instantly, but inevitably. But vision alone is not enough. You must anchor it with action, daily, disciplined, relentless action, because nothing reprograms the subconscious faster than movement. When you act as the person you intend to become, your brain begins to rewire. It begins to accept a new identity, one that is not tied to the past, one that is not based on wounds or failures or inherited fear, but one that is rooted in purpose. Purpose is what fuels the engine. Without it, you drift, you chase shadows, you compare, you settle. But with purpose, you become magnetic, you become focused. You stop asking, how long will it take? And start saying, however long it takes. Because once your purpose is clear, when you've burned the image of your future into your subconscious with the force of 1,000 suns, you become unstoppable. And when you become unstoppable, the world has no choice but to move. See, most people think the battlefield is out there, in the economy, in the marketplace, in the circumstances around them. But the real war is internal. The real war is between the old self and the emerging self, between the program limitations of yesterday and the deliberate construction of who you choose to become today. And in that battle, your subconscious is the terrain. It is the soil. It is the battleground. You either leave it wild, overrun with the weeds of fear, doubt, and mediocrity, or you cultivate it intentionally, obsessively, like the master of your own mental empire. Because that's what this is, mental architecture. You are building a life from the inside out. You don't need to manipulate the outer world. You need to command the inner one. You don't need more motivation. You need reprogramming. And that starts with absolute clarity. Clarity is the chisel that carves new neural pathways. Without it, you drift in circles, running the same programs, repeating the same mistakes. But when you decide, not wish, not hope, decide who you are and where you're going, you give your subconscious a target, a destination, a mission. You're no longer wandering, you're building, you're sculpting, you're imprinting your will into the very code of your being. And the subconscious loves clarity. It thrives on specificity. Vague desires create vague results. But when you give your mind a crystal clear vision, when you infuse it with repetition, emotion, and belief, your subconscious activates something ancient, something primal, something divine. It begins to hunt, to seek, to scan the environment, spot opportunities, connect dots, eliminate distractions, and pull reality into alignment with what you believe is already yours. This is not magic. It is mechanics. It's the same reason why when you buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. It's not that they appeared. It's that your mind was trained to notice. The subconscious acts on what you program it to perceive. And when you train it to perceive success, it begins to assemble it like a magnet drawing iron filings. Not all at once, not in a straight line, but relentlessly. But clarity without discipline is a fantasy. This is where most break. They get the vision, they feel the fire, but they don't follow through. And every time you break your word to yourself, every time you say tomorrow instead of today, you teach your subconscious that your vision is negotiable, and the subconscious never forgets. Discipline is the proof that you mean what you say. It's how you train your inner world to obey you, not just when it's convenient, not just when it's easy, but when it's cold, dark, and painful. That's when the old programming screams the loudest, and that's exactly when you override it. Discipline isn't punishment, it's power. It's the most spiritual thing you can do, to commit your body, mind, and soul to the becoming of something greater. When Thomas Edison stayed up through the night, testing filament after filament, chasing the light that would change humanity, that was discipline. When Abraham Lincoln rose from every defeat with more resolve, more vision, more intensity, that was discipline. When Elon Musk risked everything not once but again and again, building what others called impossible, that was discipline backed by subconscious programming so powerful the outer world had to catch up. Discipline is the daily signal to your subconscious that your dreams are not optional. They are mandatory. And when it believes that, so do you. But even discipline needs fuel, and that fuel is emotion. The subconscious is not moved by logic alone, it is moved by feeling. Repetition plus emotion equals programming. That's the formula. You can repeat affirmations all day, but if you don't feel them in your bones, they're just noise. That's why pain is such a powerful motivator, because it's raw, it's real, it cuts through the fog and brands itself into your subconscious like fire. But here's the key. You must direct that pain. You must harness it, transmute it, use it to create a new standard for your life. Pain can break you or it can build you. It's not the pain that decides, it's the programming. And that's where gratitude comes in, because gratitude is the emotional frequency that breaks the chain of lack. It flips the switch from I need to I have. And when your subconscious believes you already have what you're chasing, it changes the way you move. You don't chase from desperation. You attract from power. You walk into rooms like you belong. You take risks like you'll land on your feet. You speak with a conviction that shakes the silence, not because you're faking it, but because your subconscious has been programmed to know this is who I am. And this is where the world starts to notice. They won't know why. They'll call it charisma. They'll call it luck. But you'll know. You'll know that you've been doing the work in the silence, in the dark, in the unseen hours when everyone else was sleeping. You've been rewriting the code, and now the outer world is catching up to the inner truth. But the path isn't straight, and it was never meant to be. The subconscious doesn't just store your dreams. It also stores your trauma, your failures, your childhood scars. It clings to the past because the past feels safe, familiar, predictable. And when you start to rise, that past will fight back. It will whisper lies in the dark. It will pull up old patterns, old fears, old versions of you. It will try to remind you who you were, to stop you from becoming who you're meant to be. But don't flinch, don't retreat, don't negotiate. This is the moment of reprogramming. This is where the old code is exposed and overwritten by truth, by action, by presence. You must meet the fear with movement. You must meet the doubt with repetition. You must meet the chaos with vision. And above all, you must remain adaptable. Because programming your subconscious is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle, a daily practice. The moment you stop, the weeds return. The moment you settle, the old voice creeps in. The moment you say, I've arrived, you begin to fall. You must be forever a student of your own mind, forever the architect, forever in the workshop of your soul, chiseling, refining, evolving. Because the world will change, the economy will shift, people will come and go. But your subconscious, that is the one asset you carry in every room, every venture, every season of your life. Train it, and you can lose everything and build it back tenfold. Ignore it, and even with all the tools in the world, you will sabotage your own rise. This is why the greats reinvent themselves again and again, because they understand that the subconscious doesn't respond to who you were. It responds to who you decide to be. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your failures, your fears, your family's limitations, or the false identities others assign to you. You are whatever you have the courage to program into your own mind. And when you realize that, really realize it, you no longer ask for permission to change. You command it. You stop saying, I'll try. You start declaring, I am. That identity shift is everything, because once you shift identity, your entire operating system changes. You stop acting like a person trying to become successful, and you start acting like someone who is successful. And the subconscious only ever matches what you consistently act out. But let me warn you, the world won't catch up right away. People will still see the old version of you. They'll still expect you to shrink, to laugh at the same jokes, to play the same games. But while they're looking at your past, you'll be building your future, silently, relentlessly, without apology. And eventually, the world will adjust. It always does, because identity, when reinforced with action, becomes undeniable. It's not a mask. It's not a performance. It's a transformation from the cellular level up. You're not just thinking differently, you're being differently. And when you become, success is no longer something you chase. It's something you attract, not with arrogance, but with alignment. And alignment comes when your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your beliefs are all moving in the same direction. That's when your subconscious becomes a force of nature. That's when you become dangerous, not to others, but to mediocrity, to procrastination, to every old belief that said you were average. But you're not average. You never were. Average is learned. It's inherited. It's absorbed from a world that fears its own potential. But your soul didn't come here to play small. It didn't come here to repeat cycles. It came here to rise, to create, to lead, to shape reality by the sheer force of conscious intention and subconscious power. And yes, it will require pressure, because transformation is not gentle, it is not polite, it is not safe, it is a fire, and it burns away everything that isn't real. The lies, the excuses, the masks, they all melt under the heat of real, consistent inner work. And here's what's wild. Your subconscious doesn't resist pressure. It responds to it. In fact, pressure is one of the greatest tools for reprogramming, because when you're under pressure, the old programming surfaces. The scripts you thought were buried, the I'm not good enough, the what if I fail, they rise up screaming. But that's the gift, because now you can see them, now you can face them, now you can finally do the work. Pressure exposes the programming. And exposure is the beginning of freedom. So when life tests you, good. That's your opportunity. That's your moment. That's the subconscious saying, are you sure this is who you want to be? And you answer not with words, but with choices. That is how legends are made. When everything in them wanted to run, they stayed. When fear gripped their lungs, they breathed deeper. When failure knocked, they got up faster. Because their programming didn't say, this might work. It said, this must work. And that certainty didn't come from arrogance. It came from repetition, from design, from daily deliberate construction of their inner world. You don't become powerful by accident. You become powerful by programming, by choosing your thoughts like you choose your clothes, by guarding your mind like you guard your most sacred possession, because it is your most sacred possession. It is your control center. And when it's programmed right, nothing, no force, no failure, no setback can hold you. Even chaos becomes fuel, because the subconscious loves order, but it grows through challenge. It evolves when your old beliefs break and are replaced by something greater, something forged in discipline, in vision, in faith. And that brings us to resilience. You want to know the most dangerous person in the world? It's not the strongest. It's not the smartest. It's the one who refuses to stay down, the one who has programmed their subconscious to expect adversity and rise anyway. Because they understand the goal isn't to avoid the storm, it's to program yourself to walk through it. Head high, eyes forward, unshaken. Lincoln lost more elections than he won, until he became president. Oprah was told she was unfit for television, until she became a global icon. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team and used that pain to train like no one else in history. Every rejection, data, every failure, feedback, every fall, a rewrite opportunity. That's how they thought. That's how they reprogrammed the mind. And you can too. You must stop seeing obstacles as stop signs. They are signals, proof that you're in motion, proof that your old limits are being tested. The question isn't whether they'll come. The question is how you'll respond. Because how you respond, that's programming. You've got to get to a place where even when the world doubts you, you don't. Where even when the numbers don't add up, your faith does. Where even when the outer world is screaming impossible, your inner world whispers, watch me. And that's not delusion. That's design. That's what happens when every morning you rise with intention, when every night you review your vision, when every hour you choose your response, not by accident, not by mood, but by conscious command. And yes, it's hard, but you're not here for easy. You're here for extraordinary. And extraordinary requires obsession. The kind of obsession that becomes lifestyle, that becomes language, that becomes identity. You wake up thinking about your vision. You walk with the posture of someone who has already won. You train your subconscious like an athlete trains their body, not once, but daily, because you understand the game is won within. And every moment is another rep. Another opportunity to reinforce who you are, another chance to choose belief over fear, vision over distraction, movement over comfort, greatness over familiarity, because you were not made to survive. You were made to become. You were made to become not once, not in one moment of glory, but again and again and again, each day, shedding the skin of the person you no longer are, each hour casting off the chains of your old identity, and each breath calling forth the higher version of yourself, the one buried beneath years of noise, fear, and inherited limitation. And this is the truth they never taught you in school. That your mind is the most powerful machine on earth, and you are the programmer. They told you what to think. They never taught you how to think. They handed you scripts. Go to school, follow the rules, get a job, play it safe, and you repeated them, not knowing your subconscious was absorbing every word as law. But that law can be rewritten right now, in this moment, with every word you speak, every thought you hold, every belief you refuse to let go. That is how reprogramming begins, not in one massive leap, but in the 1,000 silent decisions you make each day when no one's watching. And it starts with a question, not what do I want, but who must I become? Because desire without identity is empty. Wanting something doesn't change you. Becoming someone does. The moment you define yourself not by your circumstances, but by your standards, everything changes. Your standards are the boundaries between who you are and who you refuse to be. Raise them, and your life recalibrates. Your subconscious adjusts. You stop tolerating things that don't match your destiny. You stop entertaining thoughts that don't build your future. You stop apologizing for your ambition. And you begin to move like someone with something written in their soul. Not just goals, but a mission. Not just dreams, but a destiny. Because when you move with mission, the subconscious doesn't just obey. It serves. It becomes the engine, the compass, the silent force that opens doors you didn't even see. And when the mission is real, when it comes from purpose, not ego, the world bends. Yes, it bends. It doesn't bow instantly. It doesn't fall at your feet, but it bends slowly, persistently, unmistakably to match the strength of your inner alignment. It starts with how you talk, how you walk, how you breathe, the conviction in your eyes, the stillness in your presence, the certainty in your movement. And that certainty, it's not arrogance, it's self-possession. You don't need to prove yourself when you own yourself. And you own yourself when your subconscious is no longer a wild animal reacting to fear, but a trained warrior executing purpose. That's what separates the masses from the masters. Most people react as to money problems, to opinions, to distractions, to moods. But the masters respond from vision, from purpose, from discipline. And that ability to respond instead of react, that's programming. You don't wake up and hope for a good day. You command it. You don't wait for motivation. You create momentum. You don't flinch in the face of struggle. You lean in because you've trained yourself to know this is the moment where I grow. Because struggle is not the enemy. Comfort is. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams. It whispers sweet lies. You're fine where you are. You've done enough. Just rest a little longer. But those are not your thoughts. They are the echoes of an old program trying to survive. Delete it. Every time you resist comfort, you write a new line of code. Every time you push one more rep, one more hour, one more uncomfortable conversation, you strengthen the signal to your subconscious. This is who I am now. And eventually, the world won't just see the difference. It'll feel it. People feel presence. They feel power. They feel when someone walks in the room who knows who they are. That's not charisma. That's alignment. And alignment is magnetic. But here's the paradox. To truly align, you must first disconnect. Disconnect from the noise, from social media addiction, from the opinions of people who've never built what you're building. from the lies you've told yourself about your limits. You must disconnect long enough to remember the signal underneath the static, your own voice, the one that speaks when you're alone, eyes closed, and the world goes silent. That voice is pure. It's not driven by fear. It's not diluted by doubt. It knows who you are. It knows what you were born to do. It's been whispering all along, but your programming was too loud. Now it's time to reverse that. Silence the noise. Amplify the signal. Turn the whispers of greatness into a roar that drowns out every excuse, every limitation, every false story. And then act with immediacy, with fire, because there's no perfect moment. There's no external permission. There's just now. And now is the only moment the subconscious responds to. When you act in alignment with your vision, not tomorrow, not next week, but now, you condition your mind to believe, I am the kind of person who moves. That becomes your identity. That becomes your baseline. And from that baseline, everything changes. Not instantly, not without resistance, but inevitably. Because the universe does not ignore consistency. Life does not deny those who refuse to be denied. Reality bends to the relentless, not the loudest, not the flashiest, the most aligned, the ones who rewire their mind so completely that success becomes not a question of if, but when. And that's the energy I need you to live in. When, not if. I will succeed. I will rise. I will master this mind until it becomes a mirror of my highest self. I will program this subconscious until the old version of me can't survive in this new frequency. I will rewrite the code, relaunch the system, and resurrect the life I was meant to live. Not someday, now, because waiting is the enemy of the subconscious. The longer you wait, the louder doubt becomes. The more you hesitate, the more power you hand over to the old programs. And every second spent in hesitation is a second surrendered to fear disguised as logic. But action is the great disruptor. It slices through hesitation like a blade. It sends a shockwave through your nervous system and shouts to your subconscious, we are not who we were. And in that moment, 1,000 old neural pathways start to weaken. New ones begin to form. The code rewrites itself, and slowly the new identity becomes the dominant one. This is how rebirth happens, not in the thunder of applause, not in the spotlight, but in silence, in solitude, in the invisible trenches where no one sees you, where no one claps, where no one understands the war you're fighting inside, but you keep going. Because you're not doing this for validation. You're doing this for freedom. Freedom from your old story. Freedom from limitation. Freedom from every label they put on you when you didn't know you had the power to reject them. You're doing this because somewhere deep inside, you know, you were built for more. And that more isn't given. It's claimed. It's claimed by the few who decide once and for all to take back the pen and become the author of their own narrative, who stop quoting limitations and start writing vision, who stop chasing and start creating. And that creation and that masterpiece of life begins not on the outside, but within. That's the secret. You don't chase success. You align with it. You don't pursue power. You build it. You don't beg the world to believe in you. You program yourself to believe so deeply, so consistently, so ferociously that the world has no choice but to catch up. Because when your subconscious is locked in with your vision, your purpose, your identity, there is no force strong enough to stop you. Doubt doesn't stick. Fear doesn't win. Distraction doesn't steal your time, because you've anchored yourself in something bigger than all of them, the truth. And the truth is this: you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not your mistakes or your failures or your slow starts. You are powerful. You are precise. You are pure potential waiting to be programmed into reality. And the way you do that is not in bursts of hype or flashes of motivation. It's in the daily rituals that rewire your mind. It's in the non-negotiable habits that signal to your subconscious that you're serious. It's in the relentless repetition of belief, action, and alignment. until your very being vibrates at the frequency of your future. You don't need more time. You need more clarity. You don't need more information. You need activation, because the power has always been there, sleeping, waiting, watching, and now you wake it up. You speak to it directly. You don't whisper. You command, "This is who I am now. This is what I believe. This is how I live." And nothing will shake that. You speak those words not once, but every day. You walk in them, you breathe in them, you rise in them, until one day, without realizing it, you look around and you're living it. The vision, the life, the identity, it's no longer a goal, it's reality. And you realize it wasn't magic, it wasn't luck, it was you choosing, programming, repeating, refusing to go back, refusing to play small, refusing to settle. That is how success becomes inevitable. Not because of what you did once, but because of what you became always. So from this moment forward, don't just dream. Don't just wish. Don't just consume another motivational video and go back to default. Make the decision to command your mind, to rewire your beliefs, to rewrite your story, and not someday, not tomorrow, now, because now is the moment everything changes. Now is the moment you rise. Now is the moment you finally take your place, not as a seeker of success, but as the programmer of it. You don't find greatness, you build it from the inside out. So stand up, look yourself in the mirror, and say with unshakable certainty, "I am not waiting, and I am not hoping, and I am becoming, and the future is mine to create."